Welcome to Spread Love in Organizations, the healthcare leadership podcast where we explore leadership with purpose. I am Naji, your host, joined today by Justin McKay, co-founder of Radiological Care Services, RCS, a leading provider of X-ray garment cleaning and sanitization solutions. With over 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry, Justin is passionate about patient and staff safety. Driven by a personal experience with a hospital-acquired infection linked to contaminated X-ray garments in 2012, Justin co-founded RCS in 2013. Since then, he has spearheaded the company's growth, transforming it from a cleaning service to a comprehensive solutions platform. Prior to RCS, Justin held leadership positions in national sales at Ferris Manufacturing Corp., a manufacturer of medical textiles. Justin is a recognized expert in X-ray garment care and infection prevention. He leverages his expertise to collaborate with healthcare departments, developing customized programs that deliver value, consistency, and measurable outcomes. Justin, it's so good to see you again and have you with me today.
Naji, thanks so much. Hey, that was an incredible introduction. I'm not sure I can live up to that, but it's a privilege, man, and a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to speak with you.
Before we dig into what you do and all that you've developed, I always like to start where I always do. Tell me your story.
Yeah, my story. Hey, I grew up in the cornfields of Indiana. You know, if you or any of your listeners have ever seen the movie Footloose, you know, back from the 80s, that's where I grew up. So I grew up the youngest of three boys with a single mom. And so when you hear about growing up, kind of poor or disadvantaged, I was there. And so, looking back now, I realized that, hey, man, adversity and the struggle makes you tough. And so I grew up, the youngest of three boys in a small farming community in central Indiana. But what I realized from an early age, Naji, even growing up as a young guy and kind of a disadvantaged upbringing, was we still did service. And we, my mom still had us, volunteering in soup kitchens, delivering meals, even though sometimes we ate bread and butter for dinner. And so, my story is I went to school. I went to school in Indiana at DePaul University, did a master's degree at Purdue, and have always just been involved in service and philanthropy. And just your podcast just has it spoke to me just in terms of it's really been my story in life. When I was in college at DePaul, I was a Bonner Scholar. And so what that means is I did 20 hours a week of community service for 4 years. And, I volunteered at the Humane Society or, different organizations in town, but just loving and serving and giving back has always been a part of my DNA, man. And I've got two young boys now. That's why I'm losing my hair, Naji. I've got two young boys now that are 7 and 10. And, we already are instilling in them food pantries, serving the least of these, if you will. And I'm planning next year to get them to Costa Rica for a mission trip for the first time. So, man, my story is I grew up small southern Indiana, or a small town in central Indiana. And, I just, I like you, am just riding the wave of trying to make a difference wherever I can, and just trying to help impact people wherever possible. And
you certainly are, and as you're sharing, and thanks for sharing this part of your story and journey. Service came up every single sentence, basically, and really trying to serve people and have an impact. And you chose healthcare. So tell me more. What happened in 2012? And how did you decide to do what you're doing? And now more than a decade serving people and trying to help them actually not get ill, basically.
Yeah. Oh, great question. And Naji, you're familiar with healthcare too, obviously. So it blew my mind, working in a surgical capacity or working in a surgical space where patients are coming and they're either sick or they're hurt or they need help in some capacity. And they're counting on healthcare providers and staff to help them feel better, to turn the corner in this tough chapter in their life. And so working in surgery, it blew my mind that in terms of like infection prevention or infection control, you've seen this too. There's so many measures behind closed doors in that surgical core. And I mean, you're talking about, antibiotic use and ioban and chlorhexidine baths and all the different measures for infection control and the sterile field and all this training you go through in surgery. And then in walks, 4 or 5 people wearing sweaty lead, dirty lead, or x-ray garments. You see someone walking down the hallway, eating a donut, spilling coffee on their lead and slinging it over a chair. And next thing you know, anesthesia puts it on and comes right into the surgical space. And so it blew my mind. I was wearing lead all the time inside of hospitals, and you pick up an x-ray garment that smells like cologne or smells like perfume, and you put it on and go into a case. It blew my mind back then that I was, after getting ringworm on my neck from wearing a thyroid collar, I started asking the surgical directors, radiology directors, hey, do these ever get cleaned? Or, hey, do we have a system to kind of maintenance these? And I really got a lot of inconsistent answers. I got some people that chuckled at me. Yeah, right. I've got 1,000 of them. What do you want me to do with them, man? And so I guess, Naji, the short answer there for you is the answer I got from healthcare did not sit well with me. And so I guess I'm being real transparent. It lit a fire in me. Because when I asked a couple of pretty high-level leadership folks in surgery, hey, what are we doing with lead aprons? Do these ever get cleaned? And they said, well, it's not really a requirement. No one's really making me do it. And I'm like, man, time out. Like, you just told me you knew they were dirty, you knew they were gross, but because it's not a requirement, you don't want to act upon that. And so, yeah, man, that lit a pretty good fire inside of me. And here we are 13 years later. I'm still beating the drum and leading the charge, man.
Oh, this is great. So you took like this painful experience, whether it's what you got from it or really, as you're saying, it didn't sit well. And in healthcare, it's important. Like patient safety is number one thing we need to think of, and staff safety, as you said. But looking back, you turned this into basically a company and a business that is now successful. What was the biggest risk you feel you took in early those days, and what kept you going now when you look back 13 years after?
Yeah, I guess, a funny story for that, Naji, would be I did everything wrong. Man, if you ever read a book about starting a business, man, don't do what I did. There was the Indiana Small Business Association. I met with the counselor, like a free consultation. I said, I want to start a business. And the guy said, do you have an MBA? And I said, no, sir. And he said, no one else has ever done this before? You're the first person to do this? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, don't do it. So, early on, Naji, we spent 2 years, the first 2 years of this business, really with no customers and no income. And I mean, I went almost 2 years without getting a paycheck. Man, I was formerly a VP of sales for a device company. So I just bought a bigger home. We had just unexpectedly got pregnant. And I told my wife, I'm quitting everything and I'm going cold turkey into this. And she said, say what? And so for 2 years, we were educating. And so, Naji, we would pick up, my co-founder, Zach, and we would pick up, 30 or 50 pieces, and we would ATP test them, we would clean them. And the difference was mind-boggling. The way they looked, the way they smelled. It was a light bulb moment. It was immediate that this is what needed to happen. But, we spent our first 1.5 to 2 years traveling, educating, speaking. This is why we're doing, this is what we want to do. And, for, almost 24 months, we were told, don't quit your day job. Don't do it. You're going to fail, and a couple times along the way, for example, my co-founder had to pay my mortgage. He was like, hey man, I got you. I know you're struggling. So we were lean, and those times were pretty scary. But I'll tell you, one meeting where I was 10 minutes into my presentation, and the surgical director said, close your computer, this meeting's over. And I was like, oh man, here we go again. And she goes, I want to get started right away. And she said, this has bothered me for about 20 years. I know these are a pathogen concern. And hey, man, by the grace of God, the next month we had another customer. And the next month we had our third customer. And so, yeah, man, I'm a man of faith, and prayer. And we prayed over the business from the start, man. And Naji, we just have prayed that we wanted to have an opportunity to serve and love others, but to also use the business as a ministry where we could serve and love our staff and serve and love our people, and we could drive generational change. And so, man, I wanted so bad in the core of my inner being to have a team that felt loved and to know they were appreciated and to know they were validated. That, I drove home, man, we had about 1,700 square foot space we were working out of. I'd spend 12 hours in that place by myself. I'd drive home in the dark and not have a penny to my name. And those are lonely days, man, with a baby on the way. But when you know in your core, this needs to happen, this is the right thing to do. And when you know in your core and in your heart of hearts that, man, I know that God's going to bless this, and that we're going to have a team one day that is loved and is validated, and that we're sending out into other communities, and we're driving that generational change. So, and that's a long answer for you. I'm sorry if that was a long-winded answer, but I'm pretty passionate about the struggle because the struggle is real.
Yeah. What part of your upbringing was this what got you this grit for you to solve what's right for patients and then for your people internally?
For sure, man. Yeah, my upbringing definitely paved the way. You read these leadership books and they say, don't ever be the smartest guy in the room. Well, good news for me is I've never been the smartest guy in the room. What I have been is a very resourceful guy. You mentioned grit and tenacity. And so, my undergraduate degree, for example, I worked 3 jobs. I barely had time to go to school, because I was working so much just to pay for school. But what I learned was connections and resources. And you learn to network and find the people you need to find and need to develop. So if you think about my goodness, this business, every piece of it, there's not one piece that I could copy or borrow from somebody else. We had to find a different delivery vehicle. How are you going to move 2,000 X-ray garments and lead aprons? There's no totes for those. There's no way to transport those. There's no way to, so every piece of this business has been, had to be, me at Menards often, or Lowe's on occasion, but usually Menards, looking at the lumber rack going, okay, well, what if I built A, B, and C, and how would that work? And so just needing, my upbringing of needing to be just absolutely resilient and get punched in the face and get up and take it again is what led us through those first 2 years. But really, it's what's an emotional experience for me today. And I get very emotional when I talk about it because it was so hard, and because I do care so deeply about the hospitals that say, oh, we love what you're doing and we feel so good in clean garments, and we know they're X-ray scanned, we know they're safe. Man, we love what you're doing. And for me, man, the juice is worth the squeeze. I've lost my hair and I've lost some years off of my life for sure, but I know that we're driving the right change in healthcare, and it's needed.
Oh yeah, and you're bringing a real impact in healthcare, patient, staff safety. But I want to go somewhere you're also passionate about, and you already kind of touched it, which is you're having a positive impact in how you lead your teams and the care you bring into your organization for them to be able to serve others. So I want to go here. So maybe if you can help us understand how you scaled up, from being 2 co-founders, trying to figure out for 2 years. If you can tell us how many people you have now, and how do you lead? What is your leadership philosophy, bringing this, what you said, love and care into the organization for them to be able to deliver and be themselves, grow. You also talked about impact on other communities by what they do. So I'll let you share with us those pieces.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that question. That's, as a young guy, you learn that, again, my mom had our butts in the church, and so you read about Jesus washing the disciples' feet, man, and Jesus came to serve and not be served. And so in terms of like my leadership style, man, that's how I am. Like humility and being humble is our number one piece across the board. It's our number one. Radical generosity and humility is our mantra on the walls. You'll see it everywhere. But man, in terms of how we scaled and how we grew, we went from two guys who were, cleaning lead aprons at midnight and sleeping on the floor in the shop to now we are right at 40 FTEs. And man, I'm excited to share. We just signed a lease on a new space in Charlotte. And so we are going to start to expand our operations into different markets throughout the U.S. So that we have. Yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited about that. But in terms of scaling and growing and instilling that, hey, I got to give a lot of kudos. Our CEO has been with us for about 3 years, and we kind of vetted each other for about a year. He's been great because Naji, he has the skills that I don't have, and we complement each other. And so I knew Naji, I needed, he's got the business acumen that I don't. And so I understand healthcare, and I understand behind the scenes in healthcare, and I understand some pieces of this business that he doesn't. But he is an Excel guru. He lives in the P&L. He loves the business side of things, but he still has a heart for generosity and a heart for service. And so that's been a key success component, is that your leadership team is equally aligned. And one of the things that he taught me and he brought into me, there's lots of those things. He'll tell you that. He said, hey, man, our core values, we have to use those in our interviewing. We have to use them in our quarterly reviews. We have to live them. We can't just have them on the wall. And I understood that, but then watching how he's put those into practice, Naji, we're hiring 6 salespeople this year. We hired 3 or 4 last year. And I know that's not a lot to some people, but we're going to start putting the hammer down as we grow. But using those core values during the interview process and telling people up front, like, hey, listen, this is what we're about. It's enabled us to make good hires and preserve culture and grow that culture. And man, I'm out there. Okay. I am weird in terms of being open and honest. And during the interview process, I will tell candidates, just so you know, if you work here, like, you're going to be cared about, and your family's going to be cared about, and you're going to be checked in on. And I want to know that you're well. And my number one question I ask people is, where's your head? Where's your heart? And can I pray? Do you want to pray? Can I pray with you? So I tell candidates during the process, hey man, get ready. This isn't going to be what you're used to. We're going to do fun stuff together. We're going to make good money, but you're going to be cared about like it's an experience you never had before.
So I'm intrigued with the reaction of people towards this, right? Because it's rare, unfortunately, and it's part of my podcast and my beliefs, spreading love in organizations. What's the reaction of people when in the interview it's turned around like, I care about people, the organization will care about you? Have you had interesting or people feeling like, oh my God, that's too good to be true? And I'd love to hear also how you actually make it true, because I'm very much what you said, and it seems your CEO is saying it's the actions at the end of the day versus the words on walls. And I know you have actions in place. So I'd love to get both, surprises from people you interviewed, and then how do you translate those strong values and words into actions for your people to really feel cared about?
Yeah. Hey, Naji, I told you I'm bold and I'm out there, and I'm okay with that, man. You swing and miss sometimes, and sometimes it's not a good fit. Here's 2 different examples. For example, during the interview process, where I've said, someone asked me one time, hey, are you like a Christian exclusive business or something? I said, no. I said, no, personally, I might be Christian based, but I don't mind what your background, your faith in the interview process. I had a candidate for a sales position, and she opened up and she shared a little bit. She said, well, she said, I'm a single mom. And I said, well, just so you know, I'm a 49-year-old mama's boy. And I said, if you work here, just so you know, that's your most important job. I said, I don't care that you got President's Club. I don't care that all your sales accolades. Your most important job is to be a mom. And that'll never be replaced by selling anything. And she got emotional. And it's crazy, man. She started to get emotional, and then it made me get emotional. So imagine during an interview process, you got two people talking to one another, and both of them got tears coming down their face. And I said, I know this is unusual. This is who I am, and this is what we're about. And on the flip side of that, Naji, I was talking to a gentleman in the interview process, and I said, hey, man, we do quarterly service projects together. Like we're out, at the food pantries, we're out rolling up painting, we're doing Habitat for Humanity. Like we're different, man. And he goes, whoa, well, that's kind of weird. And I was like, I know it's different. I said, it sounds like you need to experience it. And so for some people, yeah, I'm sure it is a little bit off-putting, but again, man, it's all about culture and fit. And not that everyone has to be just like me or care about what I care about, but I want to be real transparent with people. Like if you want a job where you're in a cubicle and you're hitting your numbers and you're being left alone, I don't know, man, this might not be the place for you. Like I want to drag you abroad and get you on a service trip and introduce you to cultures and people and things you've never seen before. I want you to go home scratching your head saying, wow, the things I thought in my life that were important really aren't that important.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned one of the actions we discussed, that you do those service days with your people. I know a lot of companies would do them once a year. I think you do them even quarterly and different service projects. And I'm sure it brings a lot to those who have experienced it and done it. And, it's part of the culture I think you've built too.
Yeah, I love that, man. We do quarterly projects. Those are quarterly service projects. And then we also give our employees paid time off. Our hourly team in the back gets paid time off to go serve in the community. And, we would do like last 2 weeks ago, we did a foster child supporting event. One of my favorite stories is we hired a sales, one of our sales folks last year comes in for his first day. And so you think about coming in and filling out your paperwork and meeting with HR and shaking hands. And so, nope, his first day, there were 10 of us downtown serving meals at the shelter. So we've got a hairnet on, we've got our gloves and our little smock, and we're serving food together. And he goes, man, this is my first day at work. I said, I know, and look what you're doing, man.
That's great. So Justin, I'm going to give you now a word, and I want the first reaction, whatever comes to your mind first. The first word is leadership.
Servant.
The second one is healthcare.
Broken.
Oh, you have to tell me a little bit more here.
Yeah, man. Hopefully you kind of hear my heart or my spirit, that I'm not a negative person, or that I'm not, I'm proud of what we're doing on so many fronts. There are some parts of our healthcare system that we and not just selfishly what I'm doing. There's just some parts of healthcare where we need to really focus on quality and really focus on doing what's right for the patients versus generating revenue. I get it, man. We've got to pay the light bill. We've all got to put bread on the table. But man, my mantra is people over profits. And so if healthcare, when we look at process and quality, man, I look at other countries who don't have the money and don't have the resources that we have in the US, yet their quality metrics are higher. And I'm like, man, we need to learn from that. You've probably experienced some of that too with your international work. And so when I say broken, I don't mean that in a jaded, negative way. I'm not like grumpy or grouchy. I'm just kind of like, all right, guys, I hope we can continue to look in the mirror. Like Joint Commission right now has the no harm or the zero harm initiative, where Joint Commission says, look, zero harm is attainable. We can do better. Let's look at our processes. Let's look at our protocols. Let's try new things. Let's be open-minded to drive positive change. And so that's kind of when I say broken. That sounded bad. Maybe just needs a little tune-up. How about that?
The third one is X-ray.
X-ray. Crucial, pivotal. And what I mean there is, man, so many stories the last, 3 or 4 months have been shared with me where someone's having an X-ray for someone fell off a horse and broke a rib, and they have an X-ray and they spot cancer or they spot additional challenges or complications. There's so many different, just crucial elements that X-ray is a part of. And I think maybe, I guess I'm being transparent. Sometimes I think X-ray techs maybe don't get the respect they deserve. And they know a lot, man. They know all the equipment. They know the human body forwards and backwards. They work in kooky hours too. And so we're kind of watching whether it's nuke med or CT or mammo or all the, just your general DI, all the stuff behind the scenes in X-ray, it's interwoven so much into the success of a patient's experience at the hospital. So, and that's me coming from surgery, and I didn't know a ton about X-ray. And so the more I learn about X-ray, I'm like, wow, I don't think I ever gave X-ray the proper respect it deserves.
Yeah. And all those, as you said, crucial people, workers that are the heroes many times we don't even think of, but that make, life better for several of those patients getting in the hospitals. The last one is spread love in organizations.
Ooh, I've got one word to answer that.
Well, however, you can get more.
Okay. So spread love in organizations.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable. And what I mean there is this: if our business continues to grow and it gets bigger and bigger, and we've got multiple locations throughout the U.S., and if I've lost my way, or if I have my Charlotte office, for example, if that team doesn't know radical generosity, doesn't know service, and doesn't know that they're cared about, I've failed. And again, man, the Bible talks about being faithful with the little that you have before you can be blessed with more. And so for us, if I don't ever want to swing and miss on that. I don't ever want to look in the mirror and say, oh, great, look, our business is this many millions of dollars and my people are scattered. They don't feel loved. And then I've totally failed. And then I'm going to be 55, 60 years old, looking in the mirror going, dude, you built it and God blessed it and you lost sight of what's important. You keep the first things first, man. And the first thing first for me is when I see one of our drivers in the back who I know has been on a 12, 14-hour trip, I don't just say, hey, how you doing? I shake hands. I look them in the eye. Thank you for your work. Thank you for being here. I want everyone, when they're driving down the highway, I want their hearts to feel different, man. And so spreading love in organizations, if you and I quit what we're doing and you and I go start a furniture making company tomorrow, you better believe that part of our mantra better be spreading love. Like if you're running a business and you're not doing that, you've failed. And I think when you said, hey, did your upbringing really lead you into this, or did it kind of prep you for this? Man, it did. In medical sales, I worked for a couple guys who were they didn't care about me. They barely knew my name. They sure didn't know my family. And I'm selling and exceeding goals and making them all kinds of money. And there was no love being spread there. And I hated that. And I thought, man, it's like battle, man. If you're in the army, if you're in the military, if your soldiers respect you and they know how much you care about them, dude, they'll go to war for you. And for me, it's the same thing. If I'm asking people to be away from home, you're traveling to Texas for 3 days, I call you at night at the hotel. This is how weird I am. Thanks for being there. Thanks for your sacrifice away from your family. I appreciate and recognize what you're doing for our business. That type of stuff is spreading love, man. So if you're building profits and all that stuff, that's good, man. Kudos to you for the corner office. But if your people don't know they're loved, man, you're missing the boat.
any final word of wisdom, Justin, for healthcare leaders around the world?
For healthcare leaders. Okay, now I feel bad because earlier I said healthcare was broken. So I better try to,
But as leaders, we're all doing our part to make it better.
Yes. So and there are some really awesome initiatives taking place right now. So let me come back and say, hey, keep up the good work, but don't take your foot off the gas pedal. Like using technology right now, there's some pretty cool stuff happening, some really cool innovation coming. And surgical fronts and X-ray fronts. So you're doing good work, but hey, keep looking here. Here we go. Now here's my answer. Your windshield is bigger than your rear view mirror. So, don't take your foot off the gas. Keep looking forward, and let's keep some of this progress that we're making heading in the right direction.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Justin, for being with me today and for this great chat.
Cool. Naji, it's been a pleasure, man. I love speaking with you, and I love what you're doing. And I want all your listeners, regardless, small company, big company, nonprofit, higher education, whoever is listening to this, that's the name of the game. When your head hits the pillow is not how much cash are you making, but how much love are you spreading.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for listening to the show. For more episodes, make sure to subscribe to spreadloveio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's inspire change together and make a positive impact in healthcare, one story at a time.